Okay, so I've just started the recording. Thank you for everybody for coming to this presentation for the new features in LandTracker release Flourless Chocolate Cake. So there's quite a few changes that we've got in this one that I'll run through for you. So the first one is we've got the ability to do some things in bulk that used to be done a little bit differently. One of those is importing tenements. So if you're wanting to import a large number of tenements at one time, and it doesn't really matter what the tracking is on that, so you're not needing to view the changes, you can do it in bulk now. So my example here is I'll just import 268 tenements. Generally you do it for around 500 or so. And down the bottom right hand corner there's a bulk import option. So when you click on that, it's going to tell you how many it's going to import. Now it doesn't matter how many you've selected, so it's a little bit different to a normal import. And click continue and it's just going to do a big bulk import in a single step, and you can tell that it's finished because the validation will come up saying in LandTracker. So you can see that that was quite quick. So we've now got those 253 tenements in the system that we didn't have previously.
Yes.
Now the other change is also for doing bulk updates. So if you're doing an update from the LandTrack data service, and again you just want it to run quite quickly and you don't need to have the change tracker at the end of it, there is a bulk update all, and that's going to do a really quick update. If you keep an eye on the bottom right corner of the screen after I click bulk update all, you can see down the bottom here it's showing you what it's doing. It's doing a quick process, and then down here it's now saying bulk update complete. So that's updated all of the tenements that I had in the system. Now there might be some occasions when you actually need to know what just changed, and so we've now got a view change history option. So when you click on that, that now lets you do searches to see the changes that have been made to your database. By default it's going to show you all asset changes that have been made in the last day. So we can see on here, we can see the date of the change, whether it was an add or a modify, the type of asset that the change was on, and who made the change. We can make that a bit bigger. And then over on the right hand side it gives us some details about what the change was. So if I have a look at one that's been modified, ORG up here means it's the original data, so we can see there's actually nothing in the ORG section. CUR is current, so we can see what the current data is. So we can see that this changed from having no details to having this objection recorded. This can be really useful if you, for example, if you'd made a change and it was a mistake, you can go in, you can see what was the last thing that you changed, you can see what it used to be, and you could change that back if necessary. You can also use this for reporting on, say, changes for the last month without having to go back through your change history. So up there in the filters that we've got up here, you can change the dates, the from and to date, or you can click special to basically give you some predefined date ranges, so you can see the last day, week, month and so on in there. So you would make the change and then click refresh, and that'll update and redo that search for you. You can also see all action changes, deleted assets, modified dealings and new dealings are some views that we've created for you. You can create your own views, so you can filter by any of these details. If you're wanting to include the details of the before and after in your search, you can add that in as an additional column. So you can select columns and turn on summary, and now you can actually use that in your filter. So if you wanted to filter for any objections or something like that, you can do that. So that's just right click on the header, filter for, and then we could say objection. Oops, if I can type. Apply the filter, and that will give me everything that's got objection in the change. And then you can save that as a view as you normally would. Now the cool thing with this is that that works in conjunction with the date range, so you don't need to save objections for the last month, objections for the last year and so on. The date range isn't included in that save, so you can then reapply any of those filters over the top of it. And you can export that to Excel as you can with any other data grid. Now a few changes we've made to data for tenements. One of them is that the holder data, if the percentage that any holder owns is has a number of decimal places. Those decimal places will be displayed up to 2. So previously we had some cases where a minor holder might round down to 0, or the total of the holdings might not add up to 100. So now if there are any portions, it'll give you 1 or 2 decimal places on there. We've also got a couple of new fields. So you can right click and select columns, and these fields can be added to your template if you wish, or you can just add them into the data grid. So they are exclusions. So we can turn that one on, and that'll give you details of the exclusions. And the other one is anniversary. So the exclusions data has come from the MTO data for WA. The anniversary date is calculated. So that's going to give you the anniversary date. If the anniversary has rolled over within the last 60 days, it will still show you the last date by default. So if you're still doing anything based on recent anniversaries, it will not actually tick over for 60 days. So if the actual anniversary is today, then in 60 days from today, the anniversary date will be updated. You can change that though as a system setting. So if you wanted it to change over straight away, you can do that, or if you wanted it to happen earlier. So on the dashboard under settings and then application settings, we have an anniversary rollover offset. And so that setting is that's the default 60. If that's not in there, you can add that in. If you wanted to change that to 0 so that changes over straight away, you can do that. I'll actually just show you this in the user guide. So in the user guide under application settings, there is a page that gives you details of what these different application settings mean, because we've got a couple of other new ones in here to do with the number of actions that are generated. When you create a new action, or if you import new tenements, by default it's always been that it would create 5 years worth of future actions and 3 years worth of historic ones. That's now a system setting that you can override if you wish. So you can reduce the number of months forward or increase it. So you can change that to however many months forward you want that to create, and also the number of months backwards. So if you don't want any historic ones, you can set that to 0. I'd probably recommend that you leave it as maybe 2 or 3 months at a minimum, just so that if you do import a new tenement that you have got the most recent ones in there. But that's a totally customizable setting. The other setting we've got here is the actions max forward. So that works in conjunction with the months forward. So that defaults to 20, so it'll create 20 future actions up to a maximum of the number of months that you selected. So those two do work together. Now the recurring ad hoc actions have been changed now so that they will use those same system settings. So they'll create however many future actions you had specified in your defaults. But you can manage your recurring actions. So if you have created any of those, so we've got a recurring ad hoc action in this database to have a meeting to do with a joint venture every year. There might be occasions when you need to change that. So you can go into this screen. Apologies for that, the system just muted me. Let's just do that one again. So if you had a recurring action to have a meeting every year, for example, and now this joint venture no longer exists, you could go in here, you could set an end date on it to be whenever you want that last meeting to occur. Now a couple of other changes we've made to do with actions. So we have updated the rent calculations for to use this year's actions. I've actually just been advised that there is potentially a problem with the way it's calculating rent for miscellaneous licenses that are searched for groundwater, so we're going to have a look into that one today. But all of your other rents have now been updated to use the new rates or new amounts for this year. Another change to actions is previously you could tick or untick the tasks that you've got by clicking on the name of them, and that was easy to do accidentally. So you could incomplete a task or complete it just when you wanted to highlight it. So now you actually need to tick in the checkbox if you want to complete a task. A couple of other changes we've got now. You can link a document to an action. So if you had paid your, paid a rent and you wanted to add a link to your receipt, then you can do that on the Documents tab of the action itself, clicking on Add Files and browse to that document that you might have on your network. When you do that, that will link it to the asset as well. So if it was rent for a tenement, then it will show up on the Documents tab of the tenement as well. And you can also search within actions. So that's something a few people have asked for in the past, so that search tab on the actions does work now. There's a couple of other changes to the way that searching works. So if you do a search now, it will ignore any blank spaces. So previously, if you were searching for tenements, you needed to put the space in it. If you were searching within agreements, you would need to guess whether the space had been entered or not. Now it makes no difference whether there's a space or not, whether you type it in or not, it will still find results. So if we were to go P41445, then you will get those results. You can also see here that it's given us that tenement ID is in both the name and the identifier for that tenement. Previously, you would have got two separate search results. Now it will give you one result for that asset, and then it will tell you all of the places that your search term exists. So that's quite useful for agreements where you might have a particular word, the name of a joint venture, for example, might be in the, it could be in the name of it, it could be in the comments, it could be in the summary and a few other places. So now you would just get one search result. So that's all been simplified. Now also we've got some changes to the Excel merge templates that are the sample ones you can download from the user guide. Just a couple of minor changes there to do with some of the fields that are available to you. There's also the ability for if you were to create any pivot tables and put them in your merge templates, then when you run the merge, so I'll just run one of those now, we'll do a merge to Excel. Any pivot tables that exist in it will automatically be refreshed when it gets to the end of running it. So, so in this case, I've just done a quick merge that's given us tenement details. In my merge template, I'd put some pivot tables and pivot charts. They're automatically refreshed. So once it finishes extracting the data, then you know that all your tables and everything in there are correct and up to date. You don't need to go and manually refresh them all. There is also the ability, if you were to create a merge template and put macros in it, you can get it to run those macros either before or after extracting the data for any of the tabs that you've got on there. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any occasions when you'd want to do that, but if you do want to write any macros to do anything complicated in your merge templates, you can do that now. And the user guide will give you some information about how to actually activate those. The final change that I wanted to run through with you is smart groups. There's some additional functionality now. If you're using smart groups to filter your database, you can create smart groups that will, for example, restrict the data that you've got on here to, say, tenements where there are objections on them that might have been raised in the last few months, or iron ore inclusions. Basically anything that you want to include in your filter that's to do with any of the tables on the assets, you can do that now. So when we go into View Groups and then Smart Groups, so in this case, we've got a filter for tenements where an iron ore inclusion is authorised, and it's getting that from the dealings table. So if you are wanting any smart groups to filter anything like that, we've now got the ability to make those a little bit more complicated, and please let us know if you need any assistance with those. They are explained in the user guide, but some of them might, you might need a bit of assistance. Just let us know on those. So they're all the changes that I have to go through with you for this version. Have we got any questions, Mike, that anybody has submitted that I should respond? Okay. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? Yep, I'll just get Mike to unmute you all. Just unmuting the lot of you. I think we should be... does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask about the changes that I've just run through at all? No, if you do have any questions and we've had a problem with you not being able to speak to us, please let us know after the webinar. I think I can hear people now. Did anybody have anything that they wanted to bring up? No? Okay, so the next release that we'll have will be on the 14th of August. That one will be a recipe starting with G, so please submit your recipes on Trello if you do have any exciting recipes that start with G that you'd like to share with us. Just wanted to give you a heads up too about a new feature that we are putting into that new version. We're working on the ability to send automated emails, so email alerts. So you might have emails that you might regularly be generating at the moment to maybe send to your geos or anybody to do with upcoming actions. We are building the ability for you to be able to automate that, so it can send email reports out to people to alert them of upcoming actions and those kinds of things. I will be scheduling a webinar in a week or so on that. Just give you a bit of a heads up on what it is that we're developing before we release it and get your feedback on it, whether there's anything else that we would like that you'd like us to include in that. So I'll be sending that out in the next couple of days, and if you are wanting to have any input into that, please attend that one. So thanks for your time, and